What's up, Diablo 4 players? So let's talk about it. Season 6. This is my first day 1 review after last night just playing the game and blasting. So you guys are going to see some new gameplay of the brand new rogue skill, but we're really here to focus in on my thoughts on the game. So starting right off, there's going to be some pros, there's going to be some cons, and I really want to go over like the things that kind of feel bad at the start. One of the things that is very different is the amount of loot that you're getting. So people were complaining there's like too much loot in the game, and then you'd have to sift through sand, especially on the bosses. We kind of needed a salvage system right next to the bosses since we got that awesome update that allowed us to basically get the boss, kill it, get to the boss again, and just kill it again and again without having to like go back, reset the world, you know, that stuff. But now the boss kind of just drops less loot. And I feel like that kind of feels bad, especially because loot has been kind of reworked in its design, specifically that if it's not a greater affix, it is basically worthless. There's a lot of things that you need to know for specifically Season 6 and Vessel of Hatred, but basically it kind of feels bad that like before when we go do a tormented boss, we get like showered with loot at the very end. Look how many items I got. I got 3 items from a tormented Duriel over here. And while you may think that, well, okay, shouldn't that be better because there's less clutter? The thing is that it feels a lot less rewarding just in general than what we had before. Now, this could be a pro or a con. I think that the idea is to give us less, but give us more valuable things. And I think that is a good direction. Maybe guaranteeing at least 1 greater affix would be kind of cool on a tormented boss at least, but that's at least my thoughts. And this is a very big thing because people have this feeling of, please sir, I want some more. Like, we had all of this stuff before and now you're taking it away. There's a lot of this in Season 6, which I kind of feel like has some rough edges here. And keep in mind, that's the point of a PTR, is to give them feedback. And so my thoughts process on this is like before, when we get an item, we can go use 2 tempers on it, right? We can have like the weapon and then the offensive. Now, unless it's a greater affix, you literally just get 1, which is a big difference because basically it's half the stats, right? Now, it tries to encourage you to get greater affixes, and now we have the availability of the Infernal Hordes, which isn't in Season 6 as of right now on the PTR, which it should be easier to acquire those greater affix pieces of gear. So I think that it's good that it encourages you to get those. But again, for some of those players, they're going to be confused when they go in. They're like, why can't I put 2 tempers on my item? This is broken. So that's a huge difference in the game. There's also a lot of really awesome quality of life things. So there's going to be some pros and some cons in here. I'm going to just kind of throw these out rapid fire here. So some really nice quality of life. If you have the ability to mark something, you can see that there's a compass that tells you where to go. This is nice. These are all going to be overall like positive things here as far as quality of life goes. There's also the ability to change the color of it. There's also this new rune crafting, which I think is an excellent thing. Now, in the current iteration of the game, we don't have access to the rune words, so that's going to be something that gets added later down the line. But as far as runes go, I like this idea that you can guarantee craft a rune. Now, over here, it's kind of interesting because it says there's an 85% chance to craft a rune of magic quality, and there's a 15% chance of it being good. Now, if you've ever played Diablo 2, you've probably realized that these runes are incredibly rare. Unless you're doing some trading, good luck getting some of those runes. To be realistic, most people will never get all of the runes required for some of the endgame rune words by simply playing the game. You're going to have to trade. And while Diablo 4 said that we can trade the runes, I think that's awesome. And I like the idea that we can guarantee at least get a rune, but since they are tradable, I'm more lenient on the ability to not like just guarantee the rune, like as in the rune that you want because you can trade. So we'll have to wait and see where this goes, but I like the idea that we can at least guarantee craft some sort of a rune and we at least get something. I'm not sure how the rune system is going to work if we're able to kind of rank up our runes. There's no like, you know, cube that we can throw in to rank it up, but the idea of guaranteed some sort of currency that we can craft runes, that is a huge win because if we had to farm all of them ourselves, yeah, there's a lot of people that would say, good luck, I'm just going to go on website, grab mom's credit card, which you shouldn't do. Just play the game. Hopefully, you will be able to eventually get all the stuff that you need, which I think is good. There's also a bunch of these other things over here. We can see the rune crafting. There's a 100% chance for a random rune of legendary quality. So it's like you guaranteed high rune. Okay, that's cool, but it might not be the one you want. So at least, again, you can trade. There's also the ability to craft some of these mythic uniques with runes. So I think this is great. So if you start crafting and you notice, well, I don't really need this rune, at least you can dump it into something. So I think that that's awesome. And now all of the mythic uniques will be able to roll with a greater affix. So I think this is kind of cool, but the main problem that I have with this like idea and mindset is like, sure, you get basically a 1 in 4 chance, but the difference between certain builds functioning, like the sorceress build, you need to get that cooldown reduction G8, otherwise like some of the builds just don't function properly. And I would really like the ability to maybe move a G8. Maybe we can get a special item that randomly rolls the greater affix to a different one, or we can guarantee to roll it on a different one. Like, let's say I don't need armor, I need cooldown reduction. Can I like move it? Or can I randomize my things so it moves it from life to something else? That'd be kind of cool. This is just a thing in general with greater affix items where I wish that we can kind of have a way to kind of craft and choose what we want, or at least RNG it somehow. And then on top of that, all of the stats in the game have been kind of squished. This is a really big thing where like a lot of the items, like I know on Dario's, like I had before, it said that we dealt like 120,000 damage, and then I logged back in and it's like, oh, you deal like 6,000 damage. I'm like, what the heck? But everything is getting squished down in the game in the earlier stages, but later, once we level up the glyphs, things will be changing. We'll talk more about that. But as far as the stat squish goes, I don't like that we have this lower item power. I get the mindset of squishing down the numbers, but that doesn't really apply, and I'll show you guys here in a second. Some of these numbers, you can go to crazier numbers anyways. This screenshot was taken from DapMod. Shout out to him, another awesome Diablo content creator and streamer, but you can see like you're hitting for trillions of damage. If our goal was to shrink these numbers, and sometimes, you know, these could be unintended bugs or some skills not behaving the way it should, if the mindset of changing these numbers was to kind of fix some of these crazy trillion, billion damage numbers, well, we still are having it anyways. So the idea of changing the item power doesn't matter to me as a content creator, but looking at it at a viewpoint from a more casual player, like, dude, this is the new best item. What, last season I had 925s. Why is 800 the new number? It's lower. This is worse. I don't want to play this game. So it kind of makes people that may not understand be, you know, up to date with YouTube and like, you know, just catching all the campfire chats and understanding what they're doing with the game, they just see themselves as, oh, they nerfed the game, they're nerfing our power. But in reality, we are actually probably getting even more power, which they actually mentioned in the campfire chat. But again, from the viewpoint of someone that may not understand the game and is, you know, watching and seeing all these new changes, they may feel bad with these newer stat squishers until you get there. There's this new form of currency, which you can get newer things, but we don't have access to this yet. The more forms of currency, sometimes I feel like it gets too confusing, and when you have like 50 different forms of currency, people associate that with like mobile games, and I think that like they can maybe squish down the amount of currency that is acquired, especially since like red dust isn't even like a real currency really in the game. No one really does PvP, so fingers crossed. There was a leak for an arena. I wish I could show you guys that stuff, but unfortunately there's nothing to announce for like PvP, but that'd be a really cool thing to have in the future. One other really nice feature, and I would say this is a win because this is kind of my review. I love that there is a search for groups. However, I really like Diablo 3 system of like, okay, which difficulty you want to do? Slam in, hit start, and you're just in the game, right? You don't have to search, okay, accept party invite, you know, you don't have to do any of that, which, you know, it's a give and a take. It's much better than like looking for people on forums or a Discord group, and then, hey, do you want to join up? And then you have to like kind of set up the time, but this is just like in the game. So that's awesome. I like this. And one of my favorite things is there's a section called like relaxed, or there is like, oh, my first time playing, because obviously for me, I'm going to be meta. I don't want to do it as fast as possible. I don't want anyone that's like, oh, I'm learning my build. How does this dungeon work? You know, I'm probably going to make video guides to show you guys how to do those, but I think that's great because some of the people that are a little bit slower and, you know, it's their first time playing, hey, let them play together and they can have a better experience, because it's not just about, oh, this player sucks, so therefore I don't want to play with them. People need to learn, and sometimes the players that are learning for the first time, they don't want a blaster in their game. I remember this happened in Diablo 3 a lot, where I would join a game and I would be playing like, let's say, a God DH, where I'm spinning around like 3 screens ahead of people, and the other people literally don't even get to play. Some people don't mind that. They're like, dude, I love it. This guy's carrying me. Other people are like, dude, I'm not even playing. What's the point? I don't even need to move. With like the Lightning Spear Sorceress, if I'm playing like a melee Hoda Barb, which is not even meta right now, the Lightning Spear Sorceress is just deleting everything, and then I'm like, I walk up, and I can't even swing. So it's good that there are these varieties. This is awesome. I like this change over here. And the whole party search is great. As far as the new gems go, I could care less. It's just numerical things. I wish they would get more interesting. I wish that these gems instead were like, we could have jewel sockets and we can now do cooler builds like in Diablo 3 where we had like these rainbow facet jewels. I like more complexity. This is just numbers go up. Cool. I mean, I could care less. Whatever. This like doesn't matter to me. There's also new hairstyles, which I think is really cool. New skills is also a definite plus. Like if I'm reviewing reviewing it, I would love to have seen way more skills. I mean, more people would, you know, want more skills than less skills, but let's be real, because we only get 1 new skill for each class, most people are just going to be like, I'm locking in Spiritborn. But if we got like 5 new skills for every single class, I think people would be more inclined to maybe not instantly just roll Spiritborn because they're like, oh, there's like all these things I can test out. But at the end of the day, this is still a good change. I was not even really expecting us to get new skills, but at the end of the day, you know, I'll take what I can get. But I would like to see more than just 1 new skill because, again, at the end of the day, when Season 6 rolls, everyone's just going to be locking in Spiritborn, myself included, though. They did move around some of the things in the skill tree, so I know some people were saying that, like, dude, they removed this passive. No, they more likely just kind of moved it. Some of the passives, though, have been changed, but for the most part, you have all the same things. It's just that they kind of moved it around. And then on top of that, you'll see that this number has changed. As far as the Paragon points go and how it works, you basically get another 100 points, but you have to earn them. If you run a Eternal character, you're going to start off at level 50, then you're going to have to get to level 60, which will give you 10 more skill points, and then you're going to go into Paragon, which is account-wide, which is really great. So basically, it encourages people to make multiple classes, because once you're like, you know, Paragon 300, you can make another class, and you're going to be relatively more powerful. You're just going to have to get those GAs, but people that are good are probably just going to trade for the items, have everything ready to go. I love that. It's a really awesome feature. And as far as the Paragon system goes, it does take quite a while to get to the max rank in the game. I haven't seen anyone that is absolutely like maxed out yet, even as like, you know, most people that have been playing and grinding for like 20 hours straight at the moment of me making the video have not hit the max Paragon cap yet. So as far as it goes, it does take some time. I know some people are like, I don't like this D3 system. Don't worry, it's not infinite. It does have a level, and there was some estimation, I believe it was by Rob, was like 70-ish hours. So as far as it goes, if that's what we need to put in per season, that's quite a bit. I think the average player may not hit that, but they said this is going to be like permanent. So if it's going to work like Renown, where like once we hit 300, that's it, we don't need to do it again. Okay, but I think that it may be unachievable by more casual players, so maybe they can reduce the grind a little bit in that aspect. But keep in mind, guys, we are missing the Citadel, which is going to be the new endgame raid system. Maybe that gives crazy XP. We don't know yet. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of missing, but a lot of people want to know my thoughts on it, so I'm going to go for these rapid fire real quick because there's so much to cover. Another really awesome quality life thing is you get to set your waypoint. Phenomenal change. As far as my like review on like this quality of life, this is like 11 out of 10. This is one of my most wanted features in this game. I hated Yugioh so much. That's the area that, by the way, when you do Duriel and you go back to town, and then the blacksmith is way down here, and then the potion person's way up there. Hated that. So now that we can set an area to our favorite, I like this. This is a big quality of life change, even though it is something so simple. As far as like the dungeon finder or whatever, you can find people, but let's be real. Most people that are blasters, like if you just need to do a dungeon like one time, I'm just gonna just slap it down, and then I'm just gonna keep on, you know, rapid fire doing dungeons for it. And I wish one thing, as far as like I would like, as far as it goes in the dungeon and in the pit, I don't like that like when you like start it, it's like, hey, do you want to start this? And you have to go click yes. I would rather just the dungeon starts, and if the person is still like doing something, whatever, like they can enter whenever they finish. They don't have to hit accept. There's like all these other features. Now, I want to talk about the Paragon board. This is actually a feature that I don't like as far as my review. I hate the new Paragon board system in the way that we can only get 4 additional boards. So that basically means that a lot of these other builds have to be completely reworked. Not just because I'm lazy and then I don't want to go edit all of my builds and stuff to change them. It's because it limits us in our creativity, because we are only allowed to get 4 additional boards now, which means 5 glyphs total. And there's a lot of builds that like you really want to try to hit this one and this one. And while I want to say that their idea is probably to make it less complex for some of the casuals, my mindset is probably like, okay, they probably notice most people don't actually do the Paragon boards correctly. But the thing is even if you shorten the amount of boards that people are required to get, they still have to read the Paragon board. It doesn't really matter that you're making this more casual friendly by having less boards to make it, I guess, less complex or overwhelming. Because if you actually engage in the system, you have to read. You have to say, oh, okay, or think, I need to get dexterity, or I need to get int for this bonus node to work, and I need to fill these out. And now how it kind of works as far as the glyph goes, you're going to be upgrading them, and the numbers go to Diablo 3 levels of like 700 here, 700 here, and you get all 5 glyphs to like 700 plus damage. And even though they wanted to shrink the numbers actually just get kind of increased, even though they wanted to shorten the numbers. This is kind of like backwards philosophy in terms of their design. I mean, I would rather them just to stick to one thing. If their idea is to shorten the numbers, sure, shorten them up. You know, that you're stat squishing the areas here, but then you're also increasing the numbers here, so we're getting the same numbers potentially, or even more. I'd rather them have the complexity design instead of like, oh, you just put 100 points into your glyphs like Diablo 3 gems. You just put hundreds of points into all these gems or glyphs, because it's like kind of the same thing. Each one go to 100 now. Instead of doing that, I think that the complexity could have been a little bit more interesting. I'm thinking along the lines of Season 2, if you guys remember that vampiric season where we had like these different like powers. Let me go pull this up real quick. This thing was awesome. I love this system because this is an area of power that I like, that I engage with, versus like, oh, glyphs, big number, go. Like, keep on putting points into those Paragon points, or put numbers into the glyphs, and then you just get more numbers. That isn't exciting or creative or makes the player think or engaged in the content. I like this idea that we have 5 of these. Some of these are going to cost, different sort of powers, and some of these can work with a different build. I like this idea, and I think that that's the area that I would love to have seen kind of the power progression versus just kind of the simplistic big number good. There's a couple other nicer changes here, but that's like the only system that I really didn't like with these newer changes, with the exception of the weapons, which we'll get into. There's all these other like gameplay changes, and most of these, like having another tab for like all the gems, oh man, thank you so much. Clears up the clutter a little bit for socketables. I like it. We're also putting runes in there, so that's awesome. The buff bar got increased over here. That's another nice change. But like I said before, as far as like the glyph upgrade system, I don't really care too much about it. Sure, like we are getting more power in this area, but it's like too simplistic. It's not really advancing the game in the action RPG genre. Whereas when we had Season 2, that is actually cool. I like that. And then look at this, plus 99 crit damage. But remember, this is 5 per deck. So again, a lot of these will like 700, you go 1,000 points in damage, right? Then the armor cap has been changed. I really don't care too much about it. For a content creator, it's good because like I get to make a video, explain how it works. Basically, to sum it up, you get 1,000 armor and you're done. But if you want to go do the end game content, it gives you negative 1,000 armor. So that means you get 2,000 armor and then you're done. That's really what it comes down to. I don't really know why they're changing all these like different things again. I get when they changed resistances before, that was fine. But as far as like changing the armor cap again and again, and then like there's nodes now that gives you plus 10 armor versus like what it used to give, which was way more, but it's kind of the same. It sounds really weird just to get 10 armor in the Paragon board. And then again, there's a lot of these stat squishing things. Another thing that's very important, all of your legacy items, and this is another change I don't like, okay, as far as the review, I think this is a bad idea. They got all of your legacy items, so if you got a god rolled item before, and you're like, oh my gosh, I finally got this item, it was legendary, it had all the stuff that you wanted, all of your legacy gear is now garbage. It has lower item power, and so I think this is a terrible change because, for me as a content creator, just like most people, like we always play in the new season, I don't really care about the old stuff, right? But there are people out there that are like, oh, I don't want to farm again. Now my items are garbage. Screw this game, I'm not playing. You have that sort of mindset and mentality, so just let them have their old gear that's like legacy and super OP. That's how Path of Exile handles it, and I like that idea. Like, for example, like the exploding chest that now it doesn't really exist, so you get like a 10% chance to make enemies explode and kill. Versus before, it was like 100%, right? Just let them have their cool legacy items and just let them have fun. The whole point of a new season is to play on the new season anyways. If they want to play in the old, stuff, let them, and don't nerf their stuff. I mean, Thorns used to roll like 4,000 and now it's like 200. And I know numerically it sounds bad because you're getting all these, like, your items just got wrecked, right? And it seems crazy because they're getting, divided by 10 or even further because these were like 4,000 per roll, and now the highest roll is 200 on this one, which sounds really bad, and it isn't really that bad when you actually start doing all of the newer upgrades that the game allows you to do. There's also a nice change here with like the stat squishing, making it easier to read, but eventually with all these upgrades, it may not matter as much, because I remember I went from like 35,000 HP with my character before, and then I hopped back in, and once I was level 50, I was at like 2,000 HP. I was like, whoa, what's going on here? But again, everything got kind of stat squished, and then you're going to get more power. You're going to have to get stuff on the Paragon board a little bit later over here. And then more newer changes over here. You can see that there is a chance for the upgrade when you upgrade your glyphs. It's basically like the Diablo 3 system. I honestly feel like it's too similar to Diablo 3, but at the end of the day, it worked, so their thought process is like, people like Diablo 3, so we'll go ahead and add it in. I know there are people, especially in the Diablo 2 community or Diablo 1, that are like, I don't really like the Diablo 3 system. At the end of the day, it is a system where I feel like it is kind of brain dead. Again, going back to like what I like in complexity versus like what is existing in the game. But as far as it goes, it's not like bad. Like if I'm going to give it a review of the system, it is what I would consider low effort. I give this like a 3 out of 10 in terms of like, oh, you can upgrade your glyphs. What I don't like is this legendary node bonus where it's like, okay, you get more crit strike damage. It's the same thing. Like all you're doing is number go up. I would rather have it like when you crit, this can happen, or like make it build defining. Again, going back to vampiric powers, I like complexity. The point of an action RPG is to kind of define your character and build a character that you built that is going to be different. Whereas now it's like you only have 5 glyphs, so there's going to be, more strict meta versus having the ability to select, more boards, right? And again, this is kind of the same stuff. You can actually upgrade your glyphs a little bit faster. Some of these will give you like 2 or 3 levels per time, which is awesome. And again, it's like the Diablo 3 system. I'm not going to go too far into it, but once you get a certain like radius size, it will increase, and you can get these 500 damage. This will change some of the nightmare sigils. How it works is there's no numbers. It scales to whatever difficulty you're on. I think that's kind of nice over there. They shortened up the amount of materials. I believe you just get a duck site now, and that's how you just upgrade with masterworking. It just costs more and more as you go up. Someone did a little chart over here. And then when you upgrade yourself, by the way, if it's not a greater affix thing, you can only go to 4 out of 4, which I think is a terrible design. That one, I will give it like a 0 out of 10. And the reason why is I think it's so backwards. The reason why is that if you don't have a greater affix piece of gear, you can only put 1 temper on it, which is objectively worse. But it's not because of like, oh, okay, you're eventually going to get a GA, so why does it matter? The reason why is that you're going to have people out there that are like, why am I being nerfed? Why are they changing the systems? We already learned it a certain way. Why are they changing it? I just don't think it's necessary. I mean, a GA is better anyways. Just let the people have like the 2 tempers at least. As far as masterworking goes, okay, because you don't really masterwork till like way later in the game. Anyways, this is another really nice change. This is like another 10 out of 10 change. I love this change where they actually made it so you have more room on your buff bar. This is a very big quality of life. This is also another change. If you get like the channel shrine, you're going to be able to have unlimited resources, and then it turns gold, so that's kind of cool. You can see kind of the comparison in stat squish by 750, but 800 is the new item power cap. Again, I don't know why they're changing the item power to be lower. I think they should have just made it like 930 is the new number. Like just make people think that there's like a better number. The number doesn't really matter. Attack power, item power, it really doesn't really matter at the end of the day, other than like what it gives you in the game and how the game actually feels. That matters a lot more than these like imaginary numbers, especially with the attack power. That's a big thing that like I really want them to remove attack power in the game. I think that at some point in the game they should just remove it. But another thing that was actually quite nice, I didn't actually know about this till I read it. They are actually making it so there is more hairstyles available, and they're free. So that's cool. That's a extra win that I was not expecting. And the female druid actually might be looking a little bit better. So we'll probably see some other hairstyles change. Now, this is another thing that people are talking about is the difficulty gated by level or a certain benchmark. And I want to say this is how I think it should be done. So people are complaining about this. Some people like it, some people don't. Here's how I feel about it. If you are playing solo, I think you should be able to go any difficulty. And the reason why is like, let the player just like, find stuff is too hard. Let the player like that is a blaster be able to just go to max difficulty. Now, I think for grouping, like I don't want like a level 1 seeing like a level 1 trying to do hard content because there's no level gate. I want the level gate to exist in groups only. That's how I think it should be done. I believe that's that way in D3 to an extent, because you have to do like a solo certain amount of a greater rift to be able to just search for like the Torment 16, right? And I think this is a really good thing to exist for group play, but for solo play, I think you should be able to do whatever you want. And if the player sucks and they die, just let them go back. Let the player kind of decide for themselves what is too hard. So that's how I feel about all these different like levels. We already went over this, like the number thing. But as far as the numbers go, yeah, it can get a little bit too much. So there are a couple suggestions that I think can be okay if the same target gets hit by a bunch of different things within a set duration, because since they want to squish the numbers down, like if you've ever played in a group with like a lightning sorceress or like one of those druid that does like the landslide, there's so many numbers, I literally can't see the DPS unless I pause. So my solution to this would be, if the same target is getting hit by so many things, you can maybe add it together and give us a number. I think that would kind of solve visual clarity in the game, because a lot of good players, they just turn off the numbers, and then people, like I see it in the comments, were like, this guy's hiding his numbers, he doesn't want you to see the DPS. And it really just comes down to, no, he's not trying to hide anything or his build or anything. And like, it's just because visual clutter exists in the game. That's kind of an issue with the game in general. Like in certain areas with like the Infernal Hordes, the whole like map is like, red. Why is all the attacks that are happening on the ground also red? Visual clutter is a huge problem. This applies to PoE as well. So hopefully they can address that. But as far as all of the changes here, in the amount of difficulties that we had, because I saw some people saying, why is there 8 difficulties? I think the more difficulties a game has, the better, and the reason why is because it allows players to kind of gauge, these different increments of increases. But I can tell you for sure, the difference between a Torment 3 and a Torment 4 boss is massive, and that's okay, but it's going to feel a lot different than jumping from, let's say, like Expert to Penitent. So these are not kind of created equal, so if they want to equalize the feel a little bit more, I would not be opposed to that, or just having more difficulties. Some people get too overwhelmed when they see like Diablo has so many difficulties in Diablo 3, but when we look at Diablo like 1 and 2, it's just 3. It's kind of more simplified. But the more that you have, I think this is better. So as far as it goes, as far as my review on this, the more that we have, the better. But I think from 3 to 4 is a quite big jump. You can see like some of these items are quite bugged at the moment still. But I really like this system overall. As far as wrapping it up, because we don't have access, keep in mind, to everything in the game at the moment of me making this video, specifically the runes, the citadel, the new area on the map, that's not accessible right now. But as far as my review of Season 6 in the current state, there are some pros and there are definitely some cons. The main con is that I don't like the idea that you can only masterwork your item now 4 times unless it's a greater affix. I think that system is just weird because, again, people learned it in a certain era. So I don't like that change. But I do like a lot of the quality of life. Diablo, I would say overall, is moving in a positive direction. If I was to rate what we have, and keep in mind, we don't have like the seasonal, power yet. And if that gets revealed and it's interesting, it's not just like, oh, we reset the season. Like currently in Season 5, there is no seasonal power. There's no point to playing on the seasonal versus an eternal character. You're exactly the same in terms of your power level, with the exception of like the profane mind cages. That's like about the only difference. And we don't have access to the profane mind cages. We also don't have infernal hordes. We don't have the new area unlocked. So it's kind of hard to give like an actual review of everything, but my current review of the stuff that's in the game, I would say it's a little bit lukewarm. I would give it a very average score of like a 5 out of 10. I didn't see anything super crazy in terms of like the season itself. They are doing a lot of reworks to the game, which I feel like are unnecessary. Again, they're taking a lot of power away from us in one area, but they are giving us power in another area. So it's kind of like almost the same feeling. So that's why I'm going to give it, in the current state, like a 5 out of 10, because if people wanted my thoughts in my review, that's what I would currently give it. Now, obviously, we are getting some new skills, so I would say that is cool, and that's what I'm looking more forward to, is basically playing the newer class and experiencing the Citadel. So there's not enough content here, I would say, to get me super excited. We are getting that content, but if I'm going to give a review score of what is current in the game, I would give it a very average 5 out of 10. But obviously, the Citadel will probably increase the score. Having access to Spiritborn, the whole new area, that will definitely increase the score. But if I had to give a review in the current state, that's my review of the game. Anyways, that's my thoughts. You guys can let me know yours down below, and we'll follow up with another video once we have all of the things. I mean, some people might be thinking, why are you making it without these things? Well, people were asking about, is this game worth coming back into for, Season 6? In the current state, I would say it's kind of a meh. Like, if you're a huge Diablo fan, you're going to have fun, I could recommend it. But if you're more on the casual side, there really isn't anything super insane. With the exception of like the rogue skill is pretty cool. So if you are a rogue player, I'd probably give the season so far a 7 out of 10 because you have a really cool new skill. Whereas other classes' new skills, I'm going to say so far my experience is a little bit lackluster on them, as in like they're not top tier enough. But again, you guys can let me know your thoughts down below. Anyways, that's going to wrap things up. If you guys want to see a follow-up video to a review, once we have all these other systems in place, well, it's definitely going to change. My guess is the number is going to go up unless they really mess things up. But it is definitely worth checking out if you're a huge Diablo fan. Anyways, subscribe if you're new here and if you guys want to see more of my content, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.